Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to yet another exciting case study. I hope you're enjoying these sessions as much as we are enjoying bringing them to you. Without any further ado, let me introduce you to the speakers for the session. We have with us Mr. Rishabh Sharma, Head Twitter Next India, and Mr. Mohijit Mukherjee, Head of Social Media at Spotify. They'll be taking us through success story of Spotify's World Music Day campaign on Twitter. I would request all the delegates to keep posting their questions in the chat box, and the speakers will be answering a select few at the end of the session. Over to you, Mr. Rishabh.
Thank you, Trini. Hello, everyone. While I introduce myself, I'll also just quickly share my screen. And thank you for all the listeners who are joining us. And let me start by saying I hope everyone's at home and staying safe. Very excited to share with you from Twitter perspective, and obviously have Spotify join us today to celebrate a great campaign we saw on the platform. And I think as we aim to emerge out of the pandemic, from a lens of Twitter, what we've seen is our service has been far more important as we've ever seen, in terms of demand, in terms of people that are today coming in every day to see what's really happening and what's the information. And when you think about that, and when you see it from a perspective of brands, right, various brands and the position we sit in, the privilege to have to partner with brands across the country. Many brands have really sort of led with purpose, have tried to connect with people, distribute information, and then there are brands that have entertained all the audiences that were really looking for some distraction and levity, right? In the times where you're so physically distant, but you do want something to celebrate with. And I think that's what really excites me today. I'm joined by Mohijit, as you heard, who heads social for Spotify India. It's a brand we all love on Twitter. It's a brand we all follow, hopefully love in the country as well. I'm going to invite him to really sort of kick us off and tell us what's the Spotify way of thinking today when it comes to social and Twitter, and what led to this campaign, and hopefully take you guys through how we work together to conceptualize World Music Day. Mohijit, if you can hear me.
Yeah, yep. Firstly, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining this session. And thank you, IAMAI, for having me, and Rishabh for selecting Spotify for the case study. Let me just begin firstly by just setting some context before we get into World Music Day in itself. I think the way I'm just going to take you through the deconstruction is let me put forward the company mission and what does Spotify stand for at large globally. We'll then get into a bit of what our marketing mission is, and then further get into Twitter and then World Music Day. So you'll have a sort of holistic picture of how things have sort of panned out and how did we get to World Music Day, right? So the company mission for Spotify globally is to unlock the potential of human creativity, right? And how do we do that? We do that by giving 1 million artists the opportunity to live off their art, and billions of fans the opportunity to enjoy that art, that piece of music, and be inspired by it. And therefore, the purpose for us is to encourage users to discover more about themselves, more about their friends, their family, the people that surround them, and the world at large, right? Going one step deeper, now we'll just look at the marketing mission. It's essentially and primarily to inspire people to discover. Our platform is built for you to discover. It gives you what you love, but it also gives you more as you sort of consume content on the platform. It helps you to not just discover music, and as you're listening to the music, it sort of helps you discover different cultures, and it helps you discover things interpersonally, like I said, with people close to you and at the world at large. And therefore, the goal for Spotify is to create culture with the brand, and by trying to make sure that we're championing discovery in all forms. And therefore, when we come down to social media platforms, what we believe and what you will see in the World Music Day piece as we go forward is that it's a crime for us to be boring, right? The idea for us is the overarching idea for us on social is to make sure that we delight audiences in every shape and form that's possible. And then one level deeper from that to get into World Music Day and how do we use Twitter at large. I think at an India level, and at a global level for that matter, it's about, really fostering authentic and hyper relevant conversations. And because, we've just been in the market for 18 months, it's back to the same point and the source of truth for us, which is about, really setting up culture, building culture, and building artists, supporting artists, and building the fandom for those artists, for those genres, for those albums, and for those songs, right? And what I've done for you guys after this is that I'll take you through how we've looked at World Music Day. If you go to the next slide, Rishabh, please. I've put it in this acronym called the Thinking Cap, with C, A, and P being client, agency, and platform. What that essentially means is that when World Music Day was arriving, it was a huge cultural moment, and it's a hand in glove proposition for us to participate in. And we thought this is a great opportunity to build resonance with our audience, right? Then it was about the agency taking our brief, thinking through about it creatively from a media perspective, and really seeing that how can we socially express ourselves and bring the brand truth to the forefront. And lastly, it was partnering with Twitter and building that expression through technology, right? And it's this harmonious intersection of the CAP over here, the client, agency, and platform, that helped build this big campaign for us, which led to the impact which we'll see as we move forward, right? Next slide, please. Thanks. But when we were thinking about World Music Day, there was one challenge that we had right in front of us. There were 3 topical days that were already there. And as we all know, all these topical days have a lot of conversation, a lot of engagement, right? There's Yoga Day, there was Father's Day, there was Solar Eclipse Day. And then we were left with this big, looming challenge on our head, that how do we sort of break through that? And therefore, next slide, please. We came up with a thought which I think resonates not just in India, but I think just resonates globally. And the barrier of entry for this thinking was so low, and was so real and so relatable, that it helped us sort of huge mileage out of the campaign that we finally executed. The thought was that if you can just go back one. Yeah, sure. The thought was about, there is one thing that, goes with every playlist of ours, right? Or the other way around. There's a playlist that goes with every emotion. And we believe that music is all about emotion. And Spotify has a playlist for every single emotion. So if some of you remember our journey, when we started off, there was a campaign that we initiated that was called There's a Playlist for That. And we live by that truth. And we believe that music helps you navigate through life. And while you're navigating through life, there are many emotions. And for those emotions, hence, is a playlist, right? And what we agreed on is that in this generation, no matter which demographic you fall into, people have become more comfortable expressing themselves with emojis than with words sometimes, right? And therefore presenting, next slide, please, Play This, which was the campaign we launched for World Music Day, which was around expressing your emotions and finding a playlist which was in culmination or in experience for the consumer, a delightful experience where the consumer was able to connect with Spotify by sharing just one simple emoji. And we were able to deliver a unique playlist for the 3,400 emojis that are there, which really scaled the campaign. But in terms of how did it all sort of transpire, what was the functionality mechanism, I'll hand it over to Rishabh, who helped us sort of bring this to life on the Twitter platform.
Thanks, Mojit. Really exciting. And as you would have heard from Mojit, right? I think when an insight is as deep rooted in cultural truth and brand truth, I think which is so beautiful about Spotify India, the whole philosophy about ensuring there is delight, discovery, and music is something that transcends boundaries, right? From a lens of expression, and even if you look how people consume today, Twitter, more than tweets and more than how we express, right? It's about GIFs, it's about memes, it's about emojis. And we knew when we were designing for participation, you also need technologies to support that. You need that scale wherein anyone at any given any given point of time has an emoji in mind or is feeling an emotion and wants to share something, what would that playlist look like? And I think that's what we say when you partner with us upstream. One of the key takeaways here is to sort of see that there are solutions which need to be designed very centric to a campaign and an idea. And that's one of the advantages that you have on a public conversational layer platform. And what Mohit spoke about, right, which is if you have over 3,000 universal emojis today in the world, you have over 3,000 playlists that are matched on Spotify for that very emotion. And when you take that forward, what we really did was actually converted that into a phased media launch. And Mohit ji alluded to how heavy the day was, right? It was yoga day, it was eclipse, there was Father's Day, and there was World Music Day. It was important for us to not just launch the campaign on that very day, but to create a very captivating teaser so that people anticipates what's coming. The passionate streamers, the music fans today, they love for this content. And when you receive and when you create something that can drive that anticipation, I think your launch obviously becomes far more receptive, and there's an added impact in the conversation that you can drive. And more than that, which was obviously over a Sunday when the World Music Day was actually happening, it's also about how you can take that forward, right? It's far beyond than a 24 hours hit and go. It's about, can you sustain that conversation? Can it really go forward from the audiences it is meant for, right? Can it capture the imagination of the country? And that's exactly what this campaign would do in the next few slides, what you would see. What we've done is for you to actually visualize this campaign with us right now is when I spoke about how this all started, it started from this one simple tweet, which is a beautiful tweet about love emojis, love music. And this was a tweet that was a teaser. Every engagement on this tweet, it's a very common behavior for somebody to heart and press artists, right? For tweets they like or they want to know more. And this tweet was a 3-day prior teaser, which was about when you press this tweet, when you press heart, on the day of the campaign, the people who opted in will actually get a notification saying, play this has started. What you're feeling, what's emoji on your mind, share that. And there's a playlist that will be in your notification within a matter of seconds. And I think that's what designing for participation and designing for scale will look like at the same time. And if you stay with us on tweets and see it come alive on the platform, come Sunday, it was about tweet hashtag play this, which was beautifully paired with a visual emoji, which is so much Spotify, right? Which you can see the headphones and the smiley. And this thread became obviously one of the longest participation thread you would have seen in terms of streaming category, in terms of streaming conversations on the platform. And if you see the scroll right now, which you will see audiences actually were, and as we all are, right? We do not just participate sometimes one. We will just go on and test the whole might of Spotify, or the whole might of the playlist on the platform. And there were people throwing in emojis from every corner. They were seeing whether there's a playlist for every emoji, and that's why the participation kept increasing. And if you look at the velocity, sometimes on social, and all of the marketers listening to us would agree, I think it's the velocity of a campaign that really makes a difference in terms of whether something's worth talking about or just worth knowing about. And if Twitter erupted in conversations, if someone would have noticed hashtag play this, and the emojis were obviously all over the timeline. It was all over the timeline on that Sunday, on the days following to that Sunday. And if you just look at what happened hour by hour, right, in the first 24 hours, Spotify actually received over 123K requests for a playlist. Now that's a huge number. It's about that many users actually participated and spoke back to Spotify campaign. And if you just contextualize that, you're talking about a tweet every second, a playlist every second. That's how big that looks. Which is no surprise why the campaign not just made waves in India, and it is a campaign which is organically designed, creatively conceptualized, and promoted with phased out media. It went beyond India. And that wasn't even what Mohit will hopefully touch upon in his summary was something which we expected. And that's the surprise which you hope for. It trended worldwide at number 5. There were countries in Southeast Asia that actually saw play this happening. You had the K-pop army leverage this. You had fandom that literally emerged, something that Spotify India naturally evokes, right? And more importantly, when I look at this from a Twitter conversational standpoint, if you see within those 24 hours and you compare Spotify India conversations from Jan to June, for that matter, this one day was 2 times the mentions what Spotify actually had covered from a Jan to June period. And that is, I think that's a perfect testament of what an insight that is driven by participation can really, really do. And needless to say, the media picks up, and what's happening on Twitter is happening beyond Twitter, and with the agency partners and with the media partners on ground, this is something which the media will speak about and becomes a best-in-class example. Which that is why we are probably sharing this today. What I'm also curious for everyone to know is to actually let's listen from Spotify's point of view, from Moji's point of view, right? What these KPIs really meant to them, right? What is something how they evaluate the success for us to conclude this whole campaign?
Sure, thanks, Rishabh. I think in the interest of time, I'll try and keep it short. I think, because we are so early still, when we look at it in terms of our launch being about 16, 17 months, I think brand awareness still is very critical to us, and brand love is a metric which is very critical and very important for us to look at. And I think at the scale which Rishabh you just showed, the scale at which this activity not just showed in India, but even globally, but just looking at India particularly, the scale at which it sort of gave us not just awareness, but the love and the recognition of our key differentiator that we talk about, which is playlist, is unprecedented, really, in that sense. So, the way I'd like to put it is that when we really went out over there creating this campaign, it was really about laser sharp focus. It was really about knowing what we want to achieve out of this. There was at that point no discussion about looking at other sort of secondary, tertiary objectives or KPIs. It was purely designed from day one to make sure that how do we take the communication of playlist, which we've been talking from day one, but really make it a sort of a big bang scaled campaign that builds recognition not just for the brand, but for the differentiator of playlist with the brand, and then the brand love and the delight, and that really shows, I think, not just on social, but then it sort of transpiring into consumer media.
Thanks, Majid. I think just to summarize, I think that's one of the key takeaways for us and for everyone joining is I think what Mohit touched upon from a brand perspective is the triangulation that happens between a brand brief, a creative agency's partnership, and involving platforms upstream for it to be imagined for that timeline. And I think that's why World Music Day #Playlist is a best-in-class example. We'll keep an eye on questions if there are any, and if still want to thank everyone to join, and hopefully there are many agencies listening in and trying to sort of reach very quickly for such campaigns in the year. Mojit, if you would like to add a few words, please feel free to do so.
I'll just summarize with 3 points going back to the acronym of the thinking cap, right? I think number one is, we should all be thinking more integrated. I think the beauty and the triangulation and the nexus, call it what you will, but it's about, really coming together very strongly from day one, right? Right from the brief, the client or the brand sets out, and then all agencies coming on board, including platforms, right? So be highly integrated. I think the second thing is, which I totally believe in, and we practice at Spotify, is about really being bold and agile, looking at the circumstances around you. And we all know that, on the 21st of June, that was bang center in the COVID period, right? How do you take decisions which are bold and which also are at some level? In our case, it was, will this automation really work? Will it seem repetitive? So on. But sometimes you look at historical data points, you look at historical performance of what you've done, and sometimes you just play it by gut as well, right? So it's okay sometimes to take that risk and delight. And the last thing is really critical to us on social. We continuously listen to our consumers on Twitter. We listen to what our consumers saying, and then we give them back what they're talking about. Yep.
Okay, I think there are a few questions, and we're just a minute away in terms of allotted time. So I'll just touch upon one question quickly. There's a question around what innovations do see coming on the platforms in the next years, and how can this solution be replicated? So I think quickly, more than the solution, I think we would love to sort of understand the brief. The solution isn't so much about replicating. I think if there is a demand for you to be able to give audience something to participate and worth talking about, I think the advantage with us is we can customize and build things that really match that brief. Not everything is off the shelf ad product and ad solution that you sometimes just look at, start promoting media. What this case shows is if you have an idea, there's a technology that could be built purely to support that idea. So I would encourage thinking on those lines. And the final question is, what innovation do we see coming on Twitter in the next couple of years? I think from the perspective of brands, what we are doing is, and as you would have seen every quarter, we are investing very heavily in ensuring brands get to use different ways of conversation on the platform. One of the most recent ones is our launch of conversational controls, which allows brands to see and get into conversations and design conversation how to move with the people they're following. Sometimes it's a conversation with people they mention. And moving on, more importantly, was the launch of Fleets in India, which happened a few months back, which was the option for brands to today use the real estate, which is as much text, as much video, and fleet some thoughts which stay on the platform for 24 hours, which are basically meant for their community and the followers. So those are the solutions, and in terms of the product roadmap and creative solutions that we will keep coming up with. But I think it's more important and more exciting to sort of work with marketers and agencies like Spotify India, who can challenge us with the right brief for us to innovate. So I'll conclude with that and hand it over to Srini. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mr. Rishabh and Mr. Mohijit, for such an insightful session. I'd also like to take a moment to thank our sponsors, ZEE5, Infobip, Financial Express, Flipkart, Jagran New Media. Do join us back in 15 minutes for